Hello, welcome to this video that's going to explain the relationship marketing ladder of loyalty. I'm Andy Sherratt of Spa Professional Academy, and a long established model that's been used, you can see from the slide here, since 2002 to help understand relationship marketing and the different stages of relationship marketing is this relationship marketing ladder of loyalty, typically just referred to as the ladder of loyalty, from Christopher, Payne, Ballantyne, from, as I say, 2002. It's a really useful model, and so I want to talk you through it, but also kind of highlight something that may make the model as defined in 2002 not quite right, with things that have changed in terms of digital marketing since then. So what are we talking about in terms of the relationship marketing ladder of loyalty? We're talking about steps on a ladder and categorizing customers, to use the word in the broadest sense, according to their level of loyalty at different things, so that we can see where somebody is, and therefore as marketers we know maybe what we need to do to move them to the next rung. So, having said that, I'm using the word customers in the broadest sense here. The first level that Christopher et al. Identify is that of a prospect. So what we're talking about with a prospect is somebody who could be a customer of the organisation, but as yet has never been a customer. We could be talking here about people that have inquired of us, and that's typically when an organisation might classify an individual or an organisation as specifically as a prospect. But actually we could be talking a bit more broadly in terms of that category of people, organisations that could be customers. Hey, they're a prospect for us for the future, but they've not actually ever transacted with us at that stage. When they do transact, when we get that first order, maybe they, in whatever form that takes, we could categorise them as a customer. They've bought from us. But at this stage, if we're looking at it from a loyalty perspective, there is no loyalty from that customer. They've tried us, and therefore they know what at one level we get. I mean, it could be somebody that's used us very occasionally, 2 or 3 times. Obviously, that sort of number is going to depend on context. But they're just a customer. They have no loyalty to the organisation. We may be convenient for them, or they just thought they'd give us a try, or whatever that might happen to be. But they've no loyalty, and we don't really know them either at that stage. The next level on the ladder is the client. Now, that is defined by the authors as being a customer who uses us quite regularly, maybe uses us at this stage as their most commonly used supplier of whatever it is that we offer. They're not at a loyalty stage yet, but they are using us regularly. And what I mean by not at the loyalty stage, they're happy with what we do, but if we're a shop selling something and somebody opened next door doing the same thing, they'd have no problems about no concerns. They'd happily go and try them. They might move on to some other supplier of what we do without any hesitation from their side for it. We've got to know them a little bit. They've not got to know us a little bit, but they haven't really got any loyalty at all. Now, from a marketing perspective, at these 3 levels, the emphasis of marketing activities is on winning customers. The emphasis is gaining a prospect, maybe getting that inquiry. The emphasis is on getting the prospect to convert to being a customer, to give us a try, to get that customer to start using us more regularly, to be a client. It's on winning the customers. We're not focused on building a relationship at this stage. We're customer catching. But that begins to change at the client stage because these people are using us fairly regularly. And so what we want is to turn the client into a supporter, somebody who actually chooses to use us and supports what we do. And what I would say about a supporter is, based on the origins of the model, with a supporter, it's that kind of thing. If somebody says, oh, can you recommend me as such and such? Somebody would say, oh, I use them, they're fine. But they're going to, so they will respond with the recommendation of that supplier. They're loyal enough to say, hey, they're good, I will recommend them to you. But they're not going out of their way to make those recommendations. They're responding to other people that ask for a recommendation, and they're supporting. These customers have got a bit of loyalty by this stage. They're very happy with us. They're happy to pass on to other people that we're okay if somebody asks them, but they're not shouting it from the rooftops. So we've got to know them a little bit more by this stage, and they are happy with us. The next stage, however, the advocate, this is where they will actually say, without being prompted, oh, you should go to such and such, they're really good. And they're advocating for the organisation. They become promoters. They use lots of word of mouth for the organisation voluntarily. They don't wait to be asked. They will advocate and promote on the organisation's behalf. So by this stage, they are very loyal. These are loyal customers. They've probably tried a few others and think, no, that's the one. They're the better one. They're the ones I'm really going to support and advocate for. They've got a good relationship with us by that stage. They're working, not directly maybe, but they're supporting us. And they might be the ones that say, oh, give me some of your business cards, I'll pass them on to my friends and things like that. That's the advocate side of things for it. So they are much closer in terms of a relationship. The top level of the ladder, Christopher et al. Define as the partner. These ones really do come to us and they'll say, do you know what, I'd love you to sell this. I'd like one of that. Can you do this variation on it for me? They will help the organisation offer a better service to others because they are so loyal, so embedded with the organisation as a supplier that they want the organisation to do better. They want to get, sure, they might want better things for themselves out of it, but they really want to work with the organisation to get the best they possibly can from it. And so we would know lots about them in customer terms at that level, really close relationship. It's highly unlikely, once we get to supporter stage, it's unlikely these customers are going to actively go out and seek something else. It doesn't mean they might not try that new shop that opens next door, but unless it's fantastic, they're going to come back for it. So once we get to that client stage, to come back down here, the emphasis moves. That once we've got the client, the emphasis moves on to developing and enhancing the relationships, turning the client into a supporter, the supporter into an advocate, the advocate into a partner. It's all about customer keeping, customer retention, getting to know them better, getting to provide better for them, getting more loyalty from them, building that closer relationship so that both parties really gain from it. So that's the relationship marketing ladder as defined by Christopher, Payne and Ballantyne in their book Relationship Marketing that was published first in 2002. However, we could look at a much more simplified relationship marketing ladder. And there are lots of variations on this, so this I'm not crediting to anybody in particular because I think I just kind of saw various ones and mashed them together a little bit as well. Still got the level of prospect at the bottom, somebody that isn't currently a customer, an occasional customer. Well, the way I defined the customer before, maybe the occasional customer is somewhere between the customer and client in the ladder of loyalty. Somebody that buys off us because it suits them every so often, they're an occasional customer for it. as opposed to a regular customer, those that come into the store really regularly. And I'm sure you'll be able to think yourself about places that you might go, sometimes some of those places you'd be an occasional customer, and others you'd become quite a regular customer for it. And then the top level in this simplified ladder, the advocate, people that promote on behalf of that organisation. So there's a more simplified one that kind of shows relationships, but just picks out some of the key areas from the wider ladder of loyalty. But I want to come back to the ladder of loyalty as defined originally by Christopher et al. And in the introduction I said about how maybe we need to think about it 20 odd years later than when it was originally defined in 2002. Because the one thing that has really changed in relation to the ladder anyway is the advent and mass use of social media. Because there wasn't much social media really, or you could almost say there wasn't any. That's not quite true in 2002, but certainly not in the way we have social media now, and not in the way we have recommendation sites and things now as well. They were a little bit more prevalent then, but I'm particularly thinking of social media. And the reason that I think that matters, and something that we need to consider now, is that in the ladder of loyalty, as the explanation I've just given, the advocate, somebody that promotes the organisation, that says, hey, here's a good organisation, use this. Well, if you think about social media sites, you might buy something once, a customer, and say, go on social media and say, hey, that's great, tell people about it. But actually, you're only a customer. Are you really an advocate in the way that Christopher et al. Defined originally? And I think that's where social media has changed things. And as I say, recommendation sites as well. Think of something like TripAdvisor or whatever. So you go in a restaurant, cafe or something, and you can use a review site to rate your one visit to that establishment. And then, you're that still just that customer side, but effectively advocating. So I kind of want to suggest a change to the ladder of loyalty in relation to that. I would say we've still got that elements down at the bottom, the prospect, the customer based around what originally was determined. But maybe we ought to have a level above customer of recommender. So it's that customer who has used us, maybe only once or a few times, but will actually make that recommendation via social media or a review site. So we'd have the recommender there, and then actually return to the other elements of the ladder, just with the additional level to recognise that somebody might use social media to make the recommendation, but it doesn't change some of the other fundamentals of that ladder, because actually the categorisation, the definitions originally given, which I explained in the earlier slide, of client, supporter, advocate and partner, are still relevant in terms of the levels of loyalty, the levels of relationship that we have with those customers, clients, whatever terminology we put on it. They're still relevant terminology to use. But the recommender level, in my thought, that actually something that maybe we ought to consider in that, so that we don't get that confusion between recommender and advocate according to those categorisations. So there we go. That hopefully has given you some good understanding of the relationship marketing ladder of loyalty from 2002, and some additional thoughts in relation to ladders of loyalty. So I hope you found this interesting. We've got other videos that look at other marketing models. But yeah, do get in touch if you'd like to know more. We're always happy to chat with people But most of all, thank you for watching.